Okay, tonight is the 31st of July, and this is the 15th night. We are talking on the Dīgha, Nikāya suttas. Tonight we come to sutta number 19, Mahagovinda sutta. This is another of the suttas about a past life of our Buddha. Thus have I heard. Once the Lord was staying at Rajagaha on Vulture's Peak, and when the night was nearly over, Panchasika of the Gandhabas, lighting up the entire Vulture's Peak with a splendid radiance, approached the Lord, saluted him, stood to one side and said, Lord, I wish to report to you what I have personally seen and observed when I was in the presence of the 33 gods. And the Buddha said, Tell me then, Panchasika. Lord, in earlier days, long ago, on the fast day of the 15th, at the end of the rains, the 33 gods assembled and rejoiced that the Devas' hosts were growing, the Asuras' hosts declining. Just as in the last sutta we read, sutta number 18. Then Sakka uttered the verse, the gods of 33 rejoice, their leader too, praising the Tathagata and Dhamma's truth, seeing new-come Devas, fair and glorious, who have lived the holy life, now well reborn, outshining all the rest in fame and splendor. The mighty sage's pupils singled out. Seeing this, the 33 rejoiced, the leader too, praising the Tathagata and Dhamma's truth. At this, Lord, the 33 gods rejoiced still more, saying, the Devas' hosts are growing, the Asuras' hosts are declining. Panchasika continued. Then Sakka, seeing their satisfaction, said to the 33 gods, Would you like, gentlemen, to hear 8 truthful statements in praise of the Lord? And on receiving their assent, he declared, What do you think, my lords of the 33, as regards the way in which the Lord has striven for the welfare of the many, for the happiness of the many, out of compassion for the world, for the welfare and happiness of devas and humans? We can find no teacher endowed with such qualities, whether we consider the past or the present, other than the Lord. Well proclaimed truly is this Lord's teaching, visible here and now, timeless, inviting inspection, leading onward, to be realized by the wise, each one for himself. And we can find no proclaimer of such an onward leading doctrine, either in the past or in the present, other than the Lord. That was 1 and 2. Now number 3. The Lord has well explained what is right and what is wrong, what is blameworthy and what is blameless, what is to be followed and what is not to be followed, what is base and what is noble, what is foul, fair and mixed in quality. And we can find none who is a proclaimer of such things other than the Lord. Number 4. Again, the Lord has well explained to his disciples the path leading to Nibbana, and they coalesce. Nibbana and the path, just as the waters of the Ganges and the Yamuna coalesce and flow on together. And we can find no proclaimer of the path leading to Nibbana other than the Lord. Number 5. And the Lord has gained companions, both learners and those who, having lived the life, have abolished the asavas, and the Lord dwells together with them, all rejoicing in the one thing. And we can find no such teacher other than the Lord. Number 6. The gifts given to the Lord are well bestowed. His fame is well established, so much so that I think the Katyas will continue to be attached to him. Yet the Lord takes his food offering without conceit, and we can find no teacher who does this other than the Lord. Number 7. And the Lord acts as he speaks, and speaks as he acts. And we can find no teacher who does likewise in every detail of doctrine other than the Lord. Number 8. The Lord has transcended doubt, passed beyond all how and why. He has accomplished his aim in regard to his goal and the supreme holy life. And we can find no teacher who has done the like, whether we consider the past or the present other than the Lord. And when Sakka had thus proclaimed these 8 truthful statements in praise of the Lord, the 33 gods were even more pleased, overjoyed and filled with delight and happiness at what they had heard in the Lord's praise. Then certain gods exclaimed, Oh, if only 4 fully enlightened Buddhas were to arise in the world and teach Dhamma just like the Blessed Lord, that would be for the benefit and happiness of the many, out of compassion for the world, for the benefit, happiness of devas and humans. And some said, never mind 4 fully enlightened Buddhas, 3 would suffice. And others said, never mind 3, 2 would suffice. At this, Sakka said, it is impossible, gentlemen. It cannot happen that 2 fully enlightened Buddhas should arise simultaneously in a single world system. That cannot be. May this blessed Lord continue to live long, for many years to come, free from sickness and disease. That would be for the benefit and happiness of the many, out of compassion for the world. It would be for the benefit and happiness of devas and humans. Then the 33 gods consulted and deliberated together about the matter concerning which they had assembled in the Sudama hall. And the 4 great kings were advised and admonished on this matter as they stood by their seats unmoving. The kings instructed, marked the words they spoke, standing calm, serene, beside their seats. Stop here for a moment, as I mentioned yesterday, when the 33 gods addressed the 4 great kings, and they stand up out of respect. A great radiance was seen, heralding the approach of Brahma. All took their proper seats, each, etc., just like in the previous sutta, number 18, each hoping Brahma would sit on his couch. Then Brahma, Sanan Kumara, having descended from his heaven, and seeing their pleasure, uttered these verses. The gods of 33 rejoiced, their leader too, etc. Brahma, Sanan Kumara's voice had 8 qualities, as mentioned in the previous sutta. Then the 33 gods said to Brahma, Sanan Kumara, it is well, Brahma, we rejoice at what we have heard. Sakka Devaraja has also declared 8 truthful statements to us about the Lord, at which we also rejoice. Then Brahma said to Sakka, it is well, Lord of the Devas, and we too would like to hear those 8 truthful statements about the Lord. Very well, great Brahma or Mahabrahma, said Sakka, and he repeated those 8 statements. And Brahma, Sanan Kumara, was pleased, overjoyed, and filled with delight and happiness at what he had heard in the Lord's praise. Then Brahma, Sanan Kumara, assumed a grosser form and appeared in the shape of Panchasika. And sitting thus cross-legged, he said to the 33 gods, for how long has the blessed Lord been one of mighty wisdom? Once upon a time there was a king called Disampati. His chaplain, or Purohita, means the advisor, was a Brahmin called Govinda, the steward. The king's son was a youth called Renu, and the steward's son was called Jyotipala. Prince Renu and Jyotipala, together with 6 other Khatiyas, formed a band of 8 friends. In the course of time the steward died, and King Disampati mourned him, saying, alas, at the very moment when we had entrusted all our responsibilities to the steward, and were abandoning ourselves to the pleasures of the 5 senses, the steward has passed away. Hearing this, Prince Renu said, Sire, do not mourn the steward's death overmuch. His son Jyotipala is cleverer than his father was, and has a better eye for what is advantageous. You should let Jyotipala manage all the business you entrusted to his father. And the king said, is that so, my boy? And he said, yes, sire. Then the king called a man and said, come here, my good man, go to the youth Jyotipala and say, may the Reverend Jyotipala be well. King Disampati sends for you. He would like to see you. Very good, your majesty, said the man, and delivered the message. On receiving the message, Jyotipala said, very good, sir, and went to see the king. On entering the royal presence, he exchanged courtesies with the king, then sat down to one side. The king said, we wish the Reverend Jyotipala to manage our affairs. Do not refuse. I will install you in your father's place and consecrate you as steward. Very good, Lord, replied Jyotipala. So King Disampati appointed Jyotipala as steward in his father's place, and once installed, Jyotipala carried out the business his father had carried out, not doing any business his father had not done. He accomplished all the tasks his father had accomplished, and no others. And people said, "This Brahmin is truly a steward. Indeed, he is a great steward." And that is how the young Brahmin Jyotipala came to be known as the great steward of Mahagovinda. And one day the great steward went to the group of 6 nobles and said, "King Disampati is aged, decrepit, stricken with age. His life is near its end, and he cannot last much longer. Who can tell how long people will live? When King Disampati dies, the kingmakers are bound to anoint Prince Renu as king. You should go, gentlemen, to Prince Renu and say, 'We are the beloved, dear and favored friends of the Lord Renu, sharing his joys and his sorrows. Our Lord King Disampati is aged. When he dies, the kingmakers are bound to anoint Lord Renu as king. If the Lord Renu should gain the kingship, let him share it with us.' 'Very good, sir,' said the 6 nobles, and they went to Prince Renu and spoke to him as the great steward had proposed. And he said, 'Well, gentlemen, who apart from myself ought to prosper but you? If, gentlemen, I gain the kingship, I will share it with you.' In due course, King Disampati died, and the kingmakers anointed Prince Renu king in his place, and having been made king, Renu abandoned himself to the pleasures of the 5 senses. Then the great steward went to the 6 nobles and said, 'Gentlemen, now King Disampati is dead. The Lord Renu, who has been anointed in his place, has abandoned himself to the pleasures of the 5 senses. Who knows what will come of this? The sense pleasures are intoxicating. You should go to him and say, King Disampati is dead, and the Lord Renu has been appointed king. You remember your word, Lord?' They did so, and the king said, 'Gentlemen, I remember my word. Who is there to divide this mighty realm of earth, so broad in the north and so narrow like the front of a cart in the south, into 7 equal parts? Who indeed, Lord, if not the great steward?'" Stop here for a moment. It's so broad in the north and narrow in the south is India. India tapers towards the south. So King Renu sent a man to the great steward to say, "My lord, the king sends for you." The man went, and the great steward came to the king, exchanged courtesies with him, and sat down to one side. Then the king said, "My lord steward, go and divide this mighty realm of earth, so broad in the north and so narrow like the front of a cart in the south, into 7 equal parts." "Very good, sire," said the great steward, and he did so. And King Renu's country was in the center. Dantapura to the Kalingas, Potaka to the Asakas, Mahisati to the Avantis, Roruka to the Soviras, Mithila to the Videhas, Champa to the Angas goes, Benares to the Kasi. Thus did the steward dispose. The 6 nobles were delighted with their respective gains and at the success of the plan. What we wanted, desired, aimed at, and strove for, we have got. Satabu, Brahmadatta, Vesabu, and Bharata, Renu, and 2 Dattaratas, these are the 7 Bharat kings. Then the 6 nobles came to the great steward and said, "Reverend steward, just as you were a beloved, dear, and faithful friend to King Renu, so you have been to us. Please manage our affairs. We trust you will not refuse." So he administered the realms of 7 anointed kings, and he also taught the mantras to 7 distinguished Brahmins and 700 advanced pupils. In course of time, good reports were spread about concerning the great steward. The great steward can see Brahma with his own eyes, talks with him face to face, and consults with him. And he thought, now this good report is being spread about concerning me, that I can see Brahma with my own eyes. But it is not true. However, I have heard it said by aged and respectable Brahmins, the teachers of teachers, that anyone who withdraws into meditation for the 4 months of the rains, developing the absorption on compassion, can see Brahma with his own eyes, talk with him face to face, and consult with him. Suppose I were to do this. So the great steward went to King Renu and told him of the report and of his wish to go into retreat and develop the absorption on compassion. And nobody is to come near me except to bring me food. And the king said, Reverend steward, do as you think fit. The 6 nobles likewise replied, Reverend steward, do as you think fit. He went to the 7 Brahmins and the 700 pupils and told them of his intentions, adding, So, gentlemen, you carry on with reciting the mantras you have heard and learnt, and teach them to each other. And they said, Reverend steward, do as you think fit, they replied. Then he went to his 40 equal-ranking wives, and they said, Reverend steward, do as you think fit. So the great steward erected a new lodging to the east of the city, and withdrew there for the 4 months of the rains, developing the absorption on compassion, and nobody came near him except to bring him food. But at the end of 4 months, he felt nothing but dissatisfaction and weariness as he thought. I heard it said that anyone who withdraws into meditation for the 4 months of the rains, developing the absorption on compassion, can see Brahma with his own eyes. But I cannot see Brahma with my own eyes, and cannot talk, discuss, or consult with him. Now Brahma, Sanat Kumara, read his thoughts, and as swiftly as a strong man might stretch out his flexed arm, or flex it again, he disappeared from the Brahma world and appeared before the great steward. And the great steward felt fear and trembling, and his hair stood on end at such a sight as he had never seen before. And thus fearful, trembling, with hair standing on end, he addressed Brahma Sanat Kumara in these verses, O splendid vision, glorious and divine, who are you, Lord? I fain would know your name. And the Brahma said, In highest heaven I am known by all. Brahma Sanat Kumara, know me thus. And the steward said, A seat and water for the feet and cakes are fitting for a Brahma. Let the Lord decide what hospitality he would. And Brahma said, We accept the gift that's offered. Now declare what it is you wish from us, a boon of profit in this very life or in the next. Say, Lord Steward, what it is you'd have. Then the great steward thought, Brahma Sanat Kumara offers me a boon. What shall I choose, benefits in this life or in that to come? Then he thought, I'm an expert in matters of advantage in this life, and others consult me about this. Suppose I have to ask Brahma Sanat Kumara for something of benefit in the life to come. And he addressed Brahma in these verses. I ask Brahma Sanat Kumara this, doubting, him who has no doubts I ask. By doing what can mortals reach the deathless Brahma world? And Brahma replied, that man who spurns all possessive thoughts, alone, intent, compassion-filled, aloof from stench, free from lust, established thus and training thus, can mortals reach the deathless Brahma world. And the steward said, I understand spurning possessive thoughts. This means that one renounces one's possessions, small or great, leaves one's relatives, few or many, and shaving off hair and beard, goes forth from the household life into homelessness. This is how I understand spurning possessive thoughts. I understand alone intent. That means that one goes off on one's own and chooses a lodging in the forest, at the foot of a tree, in a mountain glen, in a rocky cave, a charnel ground, in the jungle, or on a heap of grass in the open. I understand compassion-filled. That means one dwells suffusing 1 quarter with a mind filled with compassion, then a second, then a third, and a 4th quarter. Thus one abides suffusing the whole world, up, down, and across, everywhere, all around, with a mind filled with compassion, expanded, immeasurable, free from hatred and ill will. That is how I understand compassion-filled. But the Lord's words about aloof from stench I do not understand. What do you mean, Brahma, by stench among men? Pray lighten my ignorance, O wise one, on this. What hindrance causes man to sting and fester, heading for hell, from Brahma realm cut off? And Brahma replied, anger, lying, fraud and cheating, avarice, pride and jealousy, coveting, doubt and harming others, greed and hate, stupor and delusion, the loathsome stench that these give off, heads man for hell, from Brahma realm cut off. And the steward said, as I understand the Lord's words about the stench, These things are not easy to overcome if one lives the household life. I will therefore go forth from the household life into the homeless state. And the Brahma said, Reverend Steward, do as you think fit. Stop here for a moment. So here, you see, Brahma is telling him how to be reborn in the Brahma world, to become a Brahma, to renounce one's possessions, small or great, leaves one's relatives, shaving off hair and beard, and go forth into homelessness, and then alone in tent, staying in a secluded place, an aranya, and meditating and practicing the compassion, radiating compassion all around. And then also to refrain from anger, lying, fraud and cheating, avarice, pride, jealousy, coveting, doubt, harming others, greed and hate, stupor and delusion. And when Brahma mentioned all these things, he said it's very difficult to practice all this in the household life. I have to go forth. So the great steward went to King Renu and said, My Lord, please appoint another minister to manage your affairs. I wish to go forth from the household life into homelessness. After what Brahma has told me about the stench of the world, which cannot easily be overcome by one living the household life, I am going forth into homelessness. King Renu, Lord of this realm, I declare, you yourself must rule. I will counsel you no more. And the king said, If anything you lack, I'll make it good. If any hurt you, my royal arms shall guard you. You, my father, I, your son. Steward, stay. And the steward said, I lack nothing. None there is who harms me. No human voice I heard. At home I cannot stay. Then the king said, Non-human, what's he like who calls, that you at once abandon home and all of us? And the steward said, Before I went on this retreat, I thought of sacrifice, lighting the sacred fire, strewing kusa grass. But now, eternal Brahma from Brahma's realms appeared. I asked, he answered, I now can stay no more. And the king said, Reverend steward, in your words I trust. Such words once heard, you had no other cause. We will follow. Steward, be our master. Like a beryl gem, clear of finest water, so purified, we will follow in your wake. If the Reverend Steward goes forth from the household life into homelessness, I will do the same. Wherever you go, we will follow. Then the great steward went to the 6 nobles and said to them, My lords, please appoint another minister to manage your affairs. I wish to go forth from the household life into homelessness, etc. And the 6 nobles went aside and consulted together. These Brahmins are greedy for money. Perhaps we can win the great steward round with money. So they came back to him and said, Sir, there is plenty of wealth in these 7 kingdoms. Take as much as you like. And he said, Enough, gentlemen. I have received plenty of wealth from my lords already. That is the very thing that I am renouncing in order to go forth from the household life into homelessness, as I have explained. Then the 6 nobles went aside again and consulted together. These Brahmins are greedy for women. Perhaps we can win the great steward round with women. So they came to him and said, Sir, there are plenty of women in these 7 kingdoms. Take your pick. And he said, Enough, gentlemen. I already have 40 equal wives, and I am leaving them in order to go forth from the household life into homelessness, as I have explained. And they said, If the Reverend Steward goes forth from the household life into homelessness, we will do likewise. Wherever you go, we will follow. If you renounce those lusts that bind most men, exert yourselves, be strong and patiently endure. This is the path that's straight, the peerless path, the path of truth, guarded by the good to Brahma's realm. I think maybe this is spoken by the steward. He's telling them, if you renounce like me, then you must be strong. Exert yourselves and endure all the suffering. And then they said, And so, Lord Steward, just wait 7 years, and then we too will go forth into homelessness. Wherever you go, we will follow. And he said, Gentlemen, 7 years is far too long. I cannot wait for 7 years. Who can tell how long people will live? We have to go on into the next world. We must learn by means of wisdom. We must do what is right and live the holy life, for nothing that is born is immortal. Now I am going forth as I have explained. And they said, well, Reverend Stewart, just wait 6 years. And he said, too long. 5 years, too long. 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, 1 year. And then we will follow you into homelessness. Wherever you go, we will follow. And still he said, gentlemen, 1 year is far too long. Then they said, then wait 7 months. And then he said, gentlemen, 7 months is far too long. And then they said, 6 months. He said, too long. 5 months, 4 months, 3 months, 2 months, 1 month, half a month. Then he said, gentlemen, half a month is far too long. Then they said, then Reverend Stewart, just wait 7 days while we make over our kingdoms to our sons and brothers. At the end of 7 days, we will go forth into homelessness. Wherever you go, we will follow. And he said, 7 days is not too long, gentlemen. I agree, my lords, to 7 days. So, because they have to hand over their duties and their kingdom to their brothers and sons and all that. So at least they need a few days. So he said, okay, 7 days I will wait. Then the great steward went to the 7 Brahmins and the 700 advanced pupils and said to them, now, your reverences, you must seek another teacher to teach you the mantras. I mean to go forth from the household life into homelessness. After what Brahma has told me about the stench of the world, which cannot be easily overcome by one living the household life, I am going forth into homelessness. And they said, Reverend Stewart, do not do so. There is little power and profit in the homeless life, and much power and profit in the life of a Brahmin. It shows they are quite greedy. And he said, do not say such things, gentlemen. Besides, who has greater power and profit than I have? I have been like a king to kings, like Brahma to the Brahmins, like a deity to householders, and I am giving all this up in order to go forth from the household life into homelessness, as I have explained. And they said, if the Reverend Steward goes forth from the household life into homelessness, we will do likewise. Wherever you go, we will follow. Then the great steward went to his 40 equal wives and said, whichever of you ladies wishes to may go back to her own family and seek another husband. I mean to go forth into homelessness. And they said, you alone are the kinsman we could wish for, the only husband we want. If the Reverend Steward goes forth into homelessness, we will do likewise. Wherever you go, we will follow. And so the great steward, at the end of the 7 days, shaved off his hair and beard, donned yellow robes, and went forth from the household life into homelessness. And with him went the 7 anointed Khattiya kings, the 7 wealthy and distinguished Brahmins with their 700 advanced pupils, his 40 equal wives, several thousand Khattiyas, several thousand Brahmins, several thousand householders, even some harem women. And so, followed by this company, the great steward wandered through villages, towns, and royal cities. And wherever he came to a village or town, he was like a king to kings, like Brahma to the Brahmins, like a deity to householders. And in those days, whenever anyone sneezed or stumbled, they used to say, praise be to the great steward, praise be to the minister of 7. And the great steward dwelt suffusing 1 quarter with a mind filled with loving kindness, then a second, then a third, and a 4th quarter. He dwelt suffusing the whole world, up, down, and across, everywhere, all around, with a mind filled with compassion, with a mind filled with joy, with a mind filled with equanimity, free from hatred and ill will. And thus he taught his disciples the way to union with the Brahma world. And all those who had at that time been the great steward's pupils and had fully mastered his teaching were, after death, at the breaking up of the body, reborn in a happy sphere in the Brahma world. And those who had not fully mastered his teachings were reborn either among the Paranimitta Vasavati Devas, among the Nimanarati Devas, among the Tusita Devas, among the Yama Devas, among the Devas of the 33, among the Devas of the 4 great kings, and the very lowest realm, that any of them attained was that of the Gandhabas. Thus the going forth of all those people were not fruitless or barren, but productive of fruit and profit. Stop here for a moment. So those who fully mastered the great steward's instructions, they were reborn with him in the Brahma world. Those who did not fully master, then they took their respective place in the different heavens below. And then Panchasika asked the Buddha, "Do you remember this, Lord?" And the Buddha said, "I do, Panchasika. At that time I was the Brahmin, the great steward, and I taught those disciples the path to union with the Brahma world. However, Panchasika, that holy life does not lead to disenchantment, to dispassion, to cessation, to peace, to super knowledge, to enlightenment, to Nibbana, but only to birth in the Brahma world. Whereas my holy life leads unfailingly to disenchantment, to dispassion, to cessation, to peace, to super knowledge, to enlightenment, to Nibbana. That is the Noble Eightfold Path, namely right view, right thoughts, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration." Stop here for a moment. So you see, in the previous lives of the Buddha, he said he was Brahmin, and he used to teach mantras and all that. But now he only teaches the Noble Eightfold Path. Mantras crept into Buddhism, but it is not the Buddha's teachings. And Panchasika, those of my disciples who have fully mastered my teaching have by their own super knowledge realized by the destruction of the asavas in this very life the uncorrupted liberation by mind and liberation by wisdom. And of those who have not fully mastered it, some by the destruction of the 5 lower fetters will be reborn spontaneously, attaining thence to Nibbana without returning to this world. Some by the destruction of 3 fetters and the reduction of greed, hatred and delusion will become once returners, who will return once more to this world before making an end of suffering. And some by the destruction of 3 fetters will become stream winners, Sotapanna, incapable of falling into states of woe, assured of enlightenment. Thus the going forth of all these people was not fruitless or barren, but productive of fruit and profit. Thus the Lord spoke, and Panchasika of the Gandhabas was delighted and rejoiced at the Lord's words. And having thus saluted him, he passed him by on the right and vanished from the spot. So that's the end of the sutta. So here, this Brahma Sanan Kumara, he remembered because Brahma has a very long life. I think Brahma was a monk under the previous Buddha. So having a long life, he could see our Buddha, Sakyamuni Buddha Gautama's previous life. So he spoke all this, and Panchasika related this to the Buddha and asked the Buddha whether the Buddha remembered, and the Buddha said yes, he remembered. Okay, now we come to Sutta number 20, Mahasamaya Sutta. This is about the great gathering of devas who come to pay homage to the Buddha. Thus have I heard. Once the Lord was staying among the Sakyans in the great forest at Kapilavatthu with a large company of some 500 monks, all arahants, and devas from 10 world systems frequently came there to visit the Lord and his sangha of monks. And it occurred to 4 devas of the pure abodes. Devas of the pure abodes are anagamins. Only anagamins are reborn in the pure abodes, the Suddhavasa heavens. So it occurred to the 4 devas of the pure abodes, the blessed Lord is staying at Kapilavatthu with a large company of some 500 monks, all arahants. What if we were to approach him and each recite a verse? Then those devas, as swiftly as a strong man might stretch his flexed arm or flex it again, vanished from the pure abodes and appeared before the Lord. Then they saluted him and stood to one side, and one of them recited this verse: Great the assembly in the forest here, the devas have met, and we are here to see the unconquered brotherhood. Another said, The monks with concentrated minds are straight. They guard their senses as the driver does his reins. Another said, bars and barriers broken, the threshold stone of lust torn up, unstained the spotless seers go like well-trained elephants. And another said, who takes refuge in the Buddha, no downward path will go. Having left the body, he'll join the Deva host. Then the Lord said to his monks, monks, it has often happened that the Devas from 10 world systems have come to see the Tathagata and his Sangha of monks. So it has been with the Supreme Buddhas of the past, and so it will be with those of the future, as it is with me now. I will detail for you the names of the groups of Devas, announce them and teach them to you. Pay close attention and I will speak. Yes, Lord, said the monks, and the Lord said, I'll tell you them in verse, to which realm each belongs. But those who dwell composed and resolute, like lions in mountain caves, have overcome hair-raising fear and dread, their minds white and pure, unstained and calm. So here is probably talking about the Arahants. In Kapilavastu's wood, the Lord perceived 500 of his Arahants and more, lovers of his word. These lovers of his word is Savakas, hearers or listeners. To them he said, monks, observe the Deva host approach, and the monks strove eagerly to see. With superhuman vision thus arising, some saw 100 gods, 1,000 some, while some saw 70,000, others saw gods innumerable all around. And he who knows with insight was aware of all that they could see and understand. Stop here for a moment. So here the Buddha is asking his 500 Arahants to use their psychic power and strive to see the Devas who have come to pay respect. Those with limited psychic powers, they could see limited number of gods, but those with unlimited psychic power, they could see unlimited numbers of gods. And to the lovers of his word, the Lord, turning, said, the Deva hosts approach, look and see to know them, monks, in turn, as I declare their names to you in verse. 7,000 yakas of Kapila's realm, well endowed with power and mighty skills, fair to see, with splendid train have come, rejoicing to this wood to see such monks. And 6,000 yakas from Himalaya, of varied hue, and well endowed with powers, fair to see, with splendid train have come, rejoicing to this wood to see such monks. From Satta's mount, 3,000 yakas more of varied hue have come, etc. The sum is 16,000 yakas all, of varied hue. Of Vesamita's host, 500 more of varied hue. Kumbhira too from Rajagaha comes, whose dwelling place is on Vepula slopes. 100,000 yakas follow him. King Datrata, ruler of the east, the Gandhabba's lord, a mighty king, has come with retinue. Many sons are his, who all bear Indra's name, all well endowed with mighty skills. King Virulha or Virulhaka, ruler of the south, the Kumbhanda's lord, a mighty king. Virupaka, ruler of the west, lord of Nagas and a mighty king. King Kuvera, ruler of the north, lord of Yakas and a mighty king. Sometimes this King Kuvera is also called King Vesavana. He has two names. From the east, King Datarata shone. From south, Virulhaka, and from the west, Virupaka. Kuvera of Vesavana from the north. Thus ranged in Kapilavastu's wood, the four great kings in all their splendor stood. With them came their vessels, versed in guile, skilled deceivers all. Kutendu first, then Vetendu, Vitu and Vitucha, Chandana and Kamaseta next, Kinu Gandu and Nigandu these, Panada, Opanmanya, Matali, who was the Deva's charioteer, Nala, Chittasena of the Gandhabas, Raja, Janesaba, Panchasika, Timbaru with Surya Vachasa, his daughter. These and more, rejoicing, came to that wood to see the Buddha's monks. From Nabasa, Vesali, Tachaka, came Nagas, Kambalas, Asattaras, Payagas with their kin. From Yamuna, Datrata came with splendid hosts. Eravana too, the mighty Naga chief, is the elephant god, to the forest meeting place has come. And the twice born, winged and clear of sight, fierce Garuda birds, the Naga's foes, have come. Flying here, Chitra and Supana, but here the Naga kings are safe. The Lord has imposed a truce. With gentle speech, they and the Nagas share the Buddha's peace. Stop here for a moment. These are twice born. Is the birds. Birds are called twice born because first they are born into the egg, the shell, and then when they break the egg and come out, they are born a second time. So that's why they are called twice born. So here referring to the Garudas, the type of heavenly birds which are enemies of the Nagas. They like to attack the Nagas and kill them. Asuras too, whom Indra's hand once struck. Indra, I guess, refers to the Sakadeva Raja. Ocean dwellers now, in magic skill, Vasava's resplendent brothers came. The Kalakanjas, terrible to see, Dana Vegasas, Vepachiti, Suchiti, and Paharada too. Fell Namuchi and Bali's 100 sons, who were all called Virocha, with a band of warriors who joined their master Rahu, who had come to wish their meeting well. Stop here for a moment. Here you see the Kalakanjas are a type of Asuras, and they are Devas. Later we'll meet this word Kalakanja again, I think it's Sutta 24, where it is said that the lowest type of Asuras are called Kalakanja Asuras. And since here we see that the Kalakanja Asuras are Devas, so the lowest Asuras are also Devas. But later books like the commentaries, Abhidhamma and all that, they put the Asuras in the woeful plains, and they claim that the Asuras are also ghosts and also hell beings. But from here you see the lowest of the Asuras are the Kalakanjas. This is stated in a later sutta. But from here you see Kalakanjas are definitely Devas, not ghosts and not hell beings. Gods of water, earth and fire and wind, the Varunas and their retainers, Soma and Yasa too, Devas born of love and compassion, with a splendid train, these 10 with tenfold varied hosts, endowed with mighty powers and fair to see, rejoicing came to see the Buddha's monks. Venhu too, this Venhu I guess in Hindu is Vishnu. Venhu too with his Sahalis came, the Asamas, the Yama twins, and those Devas who attend on moon and sun, constellation gods, sprites of clouds, cloud spirits. Sakka, the Vasu's lord, ancient giver, these 10 with tenfold varied hosts. The Sahabus, radiant, bright, came next, fiery crested, Aritakas, Rojas, cornflower blue with Varuna and Sahadhamma, Achyuta, Anejaka, Suleya, Ruchira, the Vasavanesis, these 10 with tenfold varied hosts. The Samanas and Mahasamanas both, beings man-like and more than man-like came. The pleasure-corrupted and mind-corrupted gods, green Devas and red ones too, Paragas, Mahaparagas with train, these 10 with tenfold varied hosts, Sukas, Karumhas, Arunas, Veganasas, follow in the Odatta Geha's way, Vichakanas, Saddamatas, Haragajas, these gods called mixed in splendor, and Pajuna, the thunderer, who also causes rain, these 10 with tenfold varied hosts. The Kemias, the Tusitas and Yamas, Katakas with train, Lambitakas, the Lama chiefs, and the gods of flame, the Asavas, those who delight in shapes they have made, and those who seize on others' work. These 10 with tenfold varied hosts. These 60 Deva hosts of varied kinds all came arranged in order of their groups, and others too in due array. They said, He who's transcended birth, he for whom no obstacle remains, who's crossed the flood, him, Kankalas, we'll see, the mighty one, traversing free without transgression, as as it were the moon that passes through the clouds. Subrahma next, and with him Paramatta, Sanan Kumara, Tissa, who were sons of the Mighty One. These also came. Mahabrahma, who ruled 1,000 worlds, in the Brahma world supreme, arisen there, shining bright and terrible to see with all his train. 10 lords of his, who each ruled a Brahma world, and in their midst Harita, who ruled 100,000. And when all these had come in vast array, with Indra and the host of Brahma too, then too came Mara's host, and now observe that black one's folly, for he said, "Come on, seize and bind them all. With lust we'll catch them all. Surround them all about, let none escape, whoever he may be." Thus the warlord urged his murky troops. With his palm he struck the ground and made a horrid din, as when a thunder cloud bursts with thunder, lightning, and with heavy rain, and then shrank back and raged, but powerless. And he who knows by insight saw all this and grasped its meaning. To his monks he said, "The host of Mara come, monks, pay good heed." They heard the Buddha's words and stayed alert. And Mara's host drew back from those on whom neither lust nor fear could gain a hold. Victorious, transcending fear, they have won. His followers rejoice with all the world. It's the end of the sutta. So here, this sutta, there's not much Dhamma, just that it tells you about all the different types of devas. Okay, I think we stop here for tonight. Anything to discuss? Yasun, got any question? Now we can stop here.